Following breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ, two breaking news stories from the NBA. We start with Kawhi Leonard, who's decided to re-sign with the Clippers. That's according to multiple reports. The five-time All-Star has spent the past 2 seasons with the Clippers, posting 26 points per game. He declined his $36 million option this offseason, but has decided to return to Los Angeles. This past season, he helped L.A. to their first conference finals in franchise history. The Clippers enter the season with the 8th best odds to win a title at plus 2,000. Now, the Brooklyn Nets star Kevin Durant planning to sign a 4-year, $198 million contract extension sometime after he becomes eligible for free agency on Saturday. That was announced on his website by himself. He had 2 years left on his current deal, which would have taken him through 2022-23. The new deal now runs until 25-26 season. And for more, let's now welcome in our NBA insider, Bill Reiter. Bill, let's start with the Kawhi Leonard deal. How big is this for the Clippers to get him back in the fold?
Jeremy, it's wildly significant. It is great news for the other team here in Los Angeles. It was widely expected that this is the way that things were going to end with Kawhi Leonard. But when it's Kawhi, you don't know. He keeps his own counsel. And until he makes a decision, it's hard to get a gauge of what he's about and where he's going. So this is a huge sigh of relief for a Clippers organization that now, when you look at the entirety of the roster, the team they put together, the fact Kawhi's coming back. Now, he's got an injury he's obviously got to deal with and get through. The Clippers are one of the 2 to 5 best teams in the NBA. They're championship contenders, and that's only Kawhi.
He has a partially torn ACL. He had to have surgery in the offseason. He had that surgery back in July, so there is some concern as to whether or not we're actually going to see much of him this coming season. How much of this deal is about maybe down the road versus today?
Yeah, I think it's about a couple things. It's certainly about down the road. But the expectation, as best I've been able to glean talking to folks, and I have to stress it really feels like no one is able to penetrate what Kawhi's thinking any given moment. But the expectation is he'll certainly play at some point this upcoming season. And that is a good enough Clippers team to more than keep their head above water until he returns. So they believe, that Clippers organization believes, and I think rightfully so, they're championship contenders this upcoming season. And when Kawhi is back and presumably, hopefully not injured after that, certainly contenders in the years ahead.
All right, let's talk about KD and his deal, his extension, 4 years, $198 million. And, of course, that value going to go over $50 million by the time that deal is done. 25-26 is what they're talking about for his deal. Your thoughts on him signing that extension, or going to sign that extension, pardon me.
Yeah, Jeremy, I think it's the most significant free agency signing by far of the summer. And it may be the most significant free agency signing of many summers to come. The Kawhi Leonard news, big for the Clippers. Chris Paul, obviously huge for the Suns. You can go down the list. The Bulls got better. The Knicks got Kemba Walker. Kevin Durant might be the best player on the face of the earth. He might be the best player on the face of the earth for the next 2 or 3 years. And this certainly increases the odds significantly that Kyrie Irving will decide to stick around, and or that James Harden will decide to stick around when their respective deals are up in the not too distant future. And if you have 2 of those guys, you're absolutely a championship contender. If you have all 3, you're probably the favorite or one of the 2 or 3 favorites to win an NBA championship each and every year they're under contract. So the fact that KD has committed to Brooklyn, that he's going to be a net long term, they have the roster they have, everything it indicates about what may happen with his co-stars, it is the biggest news in the NBA this summer, and it may prove to be 5-10 years from now one of the more significant free agency signings we've seen in recent memory.
When you look at this particular signing, if you're Kyrie Irving and James Harden with 1 year left to go, what does this give you in terms of confidence, in terms of how the Nets are building for the future?
Yeah, I think it gives you the message that Kevin Durant's not going anywhere. And I think it would be fair to wonder, as a fan, a member of the front office, Steve Nash's coaching staff, or certainly Kyrie and James Harden, whether or not Durant wanted to stick around. Remember, he did tell Russell Westbrook, as best we understand the reporting back in the day, he was going to stay in Oklahoma City. He went to the Warriors. The folks in Golden State really believed he was going to stick around. He went to Brooklyn. And so I think it was a fair concern. What were his long-term plans? The fact that he's making all that money, that he has extended his contract, it indicates to Kyrie, to Harden, to all those guys, KD's in it for the long haul, and that gives us a lot more comfort to do the same if that's how we're inclined.
When we talked to Rip and Avery Johnson, they both agreed that this signing, basically gives the Nets the favorites role in terms of winning an NBA title. Do you agree with that?
I would say that I think that they are one of the favorites. I don't know that I would put them on a pedestal significantly higher than some of the other teams that are out there, only for the reasons we saw last year. I mean, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden are incredible, and Kyrie and KD, particularly in the postseason, in terms of what they've done in their careers. But all three of those guys now have had serious injury histories. Really, Kyrie and Kevin Durant. Harden was very durable until this past year. So, yes, I think on paper, if they're healthy, they're the best team probably in the NBA. But it's going to be a grind. The East has gotten better. The West is really deep. And I still think there are questions about the ability for all three of those guys to remain healthy that at a minimum would make me hesitant to put a bunch of money down on the Nets winning the whole thing. But if I have to pick a single team, it's probably Brooklyn at this point.
Okay, let's wrap this up. I'll ask you the same thing that we asked Avery and Rip. Amanda asked them, which of these teams do you think is best built for the future?
I mean, right now, I think you're talking between the Clippers and the Nets and the Lakers and that group. Right now, I think it's probably the Clippers just because you have Kawhi Leonard under contract. And it's easy to forget, the guy's been a two-time Finals MVP at two different stops. If Kyrie Irving and James Harden decide, and they may in the coming days or weeks, that they want to extend, they want to be in Brooklyn for 3 or 4 more years, they want to commit to New York City and to the borough of Brooklyn, I think it absolutely becomes the Brooklyn Nets. Are they going to be healthy this upcoming season? Maybe, all three of those guys. Would all three of those guys be healthy 1 or 2 or 3 of the following 4 or 5 seasons? Almost certainly. So if the Nets are able, because of this Kevin Durant news, to lock in Kyrie long-term or lock in Harden long-term, then I think the answer shifts unequivocally to the Brooklyn Nets.
Bill, great stuff as always. NBA insider Bill Reiter joining us to talk about 2 big signings in the NBA. Talking about Kevin Durant and Kawhi Leonard. Great to see you, Bill. And in terms of the odds to win the 2022 NBA title, you saw the Nets up there at plus 225. Then it is the Lakers. Clippers at plus 2,000. And, of course, they are going to be without Kawhi for much of the season, so their odds a little bit longer. But then you have the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks, and they're at plus 800. The Warriors at plus 1,000.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.